Great. Thank you. Go ahead, Cheryl.
I call the meeting to order at 6:01.
And
Carol, if possible, you could make me a presenter so I can put the slides up.
You got it, Kelly.
Looks like your first item up is going to be the approval of the agenda.
That's correct.
I move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay.
Did Carol get my correction on the that chart? The procedural roll call, my term is incorrect. I sent an email to correct it. I should match Carla since we joined the committee at the same time.
I apologize, Cheryl. I will fix it for the next meeting.
Yeah, I don't know where that other one came from.
We just wanted to extend your term. That's all, Cheryl.
I know it is nice to be wanted.
Carly, you too. You guys are
Yeah,
going to stay. So
Okay.
You know, I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt, but I think we should do the procedural roll call to make sure that we have officially established the quorum on the record, which
Okay.
I think was item 1, but it's lost, I think, in the chart.
yeah, I sometimes forget that with Zoom, we're supposed to actually do a roll call. Thank you, Janet. Carol, can you call the roll, please?
Sure. Member Cheryl Drinkwater,
Here.
Member White Skills. We'll get back to him. Member Carla Schneiderman,
Here.
Member Ken Berland, Member Alejandro Pimentel,
Here.
Member Damian Park.
Here.
Thank you. Facilities Analyst Shanita Stevenson.
Present.
Sorry, question. Do I have to continue with the staff as well? No, right?
No, I believe it's just the
Okay.
committee members.
Correct.
Thank you, Janet. Cheryl, please feel free to go on.
Okay, we have approved the agenda, I believe. So item number 3 is public comments on non-agenda items. I do not believe we have any members of the public here, do we?
We do not.
Okay. Number 4 would be approval of the meeting minutes from November 9th.
So
And-
everybody should have received this in the email or on the website. So if you can't read it here, you should have also had your own copy, but I can also zoom in if anyone needs to look at anything in specific.
Yeah, I personally, I mean, I've reviewed it. I don't know if I should motion to approve, but
Motion
I
to
do.
approve.
I'll second.
All
okay.
right.
And going back to the agenda.
Well, I think we also have to vote. We have to vote as well.
Oh,
as
I'm so
motion.
sorry.
That's
I'm
okay.
so sorry. Yes. I don't believe I call the vote, do I? Is
Okay,
that,
I can do that if you like.
that
That's
Carol?
fine.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
All in favor of approval of the minutes?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion passes. And I believe, John, you had an item you wanted to cover prior to this? Is that correct?
No, so I'm on there on item 6.
Oh, sorry, I can't present the slides and look at the agenda.
no worries.
So
All right.
then we're at item number 5, discussion. What is the expertise of the guests and staff present at the meeting?
Yeah, so I just wanted to go over this. This was at the request of Member Park. to review the folks that attend the meeting that are non-committee members. So this is the same list that's at the top of the agenda, obviously, but I just wanted to take a moment to go through the folks that are here. So I'm just going to quickly run through the staff on the BUSD side because I think everybody's pretty familiar with them. But Carol is the assistant to the executive director, so she's supporting us in the administrative role from the district. And Shanita is the facilities analyst. It works with logistics and the financial end of things on the district side. And then obviously, John is the executive director and supervising all of the activities under capital projects, which is where this group lies under. I know he wears a lot of other hats, but that's what he's doing for this group. And then for myself and the rest of my team, I'll go into a little bit more detail. So one of the things, the questions that Member Park raised is efficiency or economy. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that VPCS is paid on a percentage basis. So it's not an hourly rate. So however many people are here, you don't pay any more, any less for them. So we feel kind of like the more information, the better. So we try to get as many people here so that they can answer the various questions. So my role in the team, I'm vice president of VPCS as a company, but I'm also principal in charge of this team at Berkeley. So I am in Berkeley multiple times a week, meeting with my team, giving input, and then doing the kind of higher level presentations. I work with you folks. I also help John out with subcommittee, with board members and things like that, and just help with the overall planning and the management of the team. Prachi Amin is not here today. We had a conflict and somebody had to cover a city council meeting where there was some stuff being talked about too. So she's over there, but her role as program manager means that she's leading the program related activities. So to be clear on what that is, that's going to be the pre-construction efforts. So that is procurement of vendors and working with the designers on the planning side for the projects. Often it means working with community members and things like that. So she's on the front end of the bond. And then Chris Marino, who I know many of you know and have attended a lot of meetings and is here tonight, is our senior construction manager. So he is the lead for the construction related activities. So once we go into active construction, we're dealing with contractors and active campuses and things like that. He's involved with that part. And then Cal Wash is here as VPCS's admin for our program team, and she's helping take notes and kind of keep us in line as well. So that gives a little breakdown of what the folks do. VPCS has a number of other team members that help with the bond, both under the program side and under the active construction side. If ever we need one of them to come and present on a particular topic, we can always pull those folks in too. But the nice thing about having all these people here is if we need to speak to something on the program level, Prachi's available. If we're here to speak to something on the construction level, then Chris is available. That way I'm never hung out to dry and neither is John. So that's just a little breakdown of how our roles work out. And if you guys have any other questions, just let me know.
I just want to make one quick comment unrelated. I believe Wade Skeels is here under Damien's name.
I am here. I don't, last time I got on no problem. And then this time the link was not sent to the email that I used to get on. So Damien sent me the link and I got on right away. So
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. So we just should include Wade in the roll call. If somebody
Here.
wants. to
We
make
will
that
know that.
correction.
We'll make that correction. Thank you.
Mhm. All right. Sorry to interrupt about item number 5 and the explanation of the staff. Thank you.
That's okay. If anyone has any questions, just let me know.
Does my impression so far is that John knows all, and therefore it seems redundant. But maybe that's going to change in the future.
Yeah, so thank you for that thought.
John and Shanita, by the way, I'm going to put Shanita in that category too. That the two of you are sufficient, and therefore it seems redundant to have more. But
we are, but I'll tell you that one, as the bond program continues to move forward, Damien, and it gets larger, there is a certain amount of capacity that any one person can hold in their brain at a given time. What we don't want to do is stand here and when we're asked a question, say, I don't know. The other piece of that is that for me, I understand the big picture of everything that we're doing. and I understand the minutia of a lot of what we're doing, but not necessarily, I don't have the information on the tip of my tongue of all the minutia at times. So again, to reiterate Kelly's point, I don't pay anything extra, or the bond doesn't pay anything extra to bring the Van Pelt team in. And by having them here, we're afforded the opportunity to really answer your questions in a much better way. And we also have issues where in Berkeley, because of the fact that we do have so many night meetings, sometimes there's conflicts. The last meeting, I was actually triple booked, so I attended 2 other meetings and didn't make it to the CBOC. So understanding that, and also really the constraints and the demands that are on district staff, it's better if the CBOC is facilitated by our program and our CM team so that we know they can always be here. It also allows us to pinch hit at times. I've been told I'm a hard boss, but I'm definitely all about trying to give people some vacation every now and again when they need it, including myself. So there'll be times where I may not be here. Shanita, Kelly, although I would advocate for Shanita to take vacation because she never does. But for Kelly or Chris Moreno. So it's really just about having everyone at the table who understands all of the moving parts, because facilities is just that, Damien. It's a tremendous amount of moving parts. So we're just trying to make sure we have everyone.
Let me push back on one thing, which is that it's free. Outside the fact that people have to spend their time, I know in VPCS, I don't know how you organize a contractor to figure out what percentage that you are owed. But I mean, obviously, if you have less responsibilities, you might accept a little bit less. So the impression is, it still seems like overkill to me. I don't know what the other members feel about it. I'm happy to have my questions answered. That's obviously nice, but I haven't felt that we're even close to needing all this staff every time. And of course, if we don't get a question answered, we can always email after the fact. It doesn't strike me as, it just strikes me as a little overkill. And it also does not strike me as free. I don't know what the other members feel
I
like.
just want to be clear about my wording. I did not say it was free. I said that we bill on a percentage basis, and that whether there is 1 person present at the meeting or 5, I will bill the same percentage. That's not the same as saying it's free.
And let me jump in real quick, because to Kelly's point, but also to your question, and I appreciate the pushback on that, Damien. What I will share, since the contract has already been negotiated, signed, executed, and put in place, is we're paying considerably under market rate for both program management and construction management. That was part of the negotiation that I had with Van Pelt. So the reality is bringing them into these meetings so that we do have everyone here to answer the questions, so that we don't have to do everything through follow-up emails, and we're able to do it also for the public at the time of the meetings, is the right thing to do.
All right, any other questions? Okay.
Okay, then I guess we will go on to item number 6, which I believe is John.
Yeah, so thank you. I just wanted to give the committee a brief update, really just as a kind of a what's coming down thing. And it's really just more of a heads up for you all, because there will likely be there will be a change to the bond program, which the bond language does allow for. Many of you have attended meetings here at Oregon Street, and when you come in, you've seen the sign on the door that the building does not meet the Field Act, and it does not meet the structural requirements of the Field Act. A brief history is plant ops. This facility was built in 1915 as a school. In 1933, it was closed because it was not Field Act compliant. No work has ever been done to the facility, and it's served the district in many different capacities over the last century as ancillaries, offices or ancillary storage, plant ops, etc. Recently, the board authorized a project in May of last year to deal with some compliance issues specifically related to stormwater pollution prevention. With that, we had to have a structural engineer look at some components of it that we were concerned with, particularly the basement and the possible degradation of the foundation, since the basement is underwater all winter. And then also some environmental looks, or some environmental testing that we had to have done in regards to moving the project forward. We have actually received preliminary reports back, and based on those preliminary reports, which once we receive the final reports in January and February, we expect environmental in January, structural in February, those reports will be made public. But based on those reports, last Wednesday, I went into closed session and had a conversation with the board about this. And Thursday, we notified staff, and Friday, we issued a press release. Effective immediately, and it's happening over the next few months, we are actually completely shuttering this facility. And we're closing this facility with the interest of staff safety and health at the forefront of our thinking. We're moving everyone out. This facility currently houses facilities, construction managers, program managers, print shop, nutrition services administration, cooking and gardening administration, the purchasing warehouse, the nutrition services warehouse, maintenance, all maintenance shops, all maintenance vehicles, and then operations. Because of the need, one of the questions was asked already of, these buildings are old, we've always known them to be a problem, why now, why are we reacting? Well, we're reacting because now, with the reports that I have and with the knowledge that I have to react. I have to react with the best interest of the safety and the health of our staff. So we have entered into a lease for an office building that'll take care of all of our office functions. We're currently negotiating a lease for a warehouse space to take care of all the other functions that I've mentioned. Once those are done, that's number one on my list, is get everyone out of these buildings. Once we've completed that, we'll begin work with the board to decide how we rebuild plant ops. Do we relocate plant ops, et cetera? What are the next steps that we'll take? And then a project will be authorized with the board to do one of those. So those pieces are forthcoming, but because you have a responsibility to report out on the audit, we do want to let you know about projects that are being added. One of the projects is that you'll see is going to be temporary relocation of plant ops. That will include everything from moving fees to ancillary services to rental and lease agreements. And then following that, after working with the board, there will likely be a project either to relocate, reconstruct, or purchase new. We don't know what that looks like yet. We're working on that. And I'm working a lot with Kelly and the rest of the program team on that.
Is that bond money? Oh, sorry, Cyril.
That absolutely is bond money, Damien, yes.
Yes,
Sure.
that was one of my questions was, is it a bond, like bond, is it Measure G or is it a future bond? That was one of my questions.
No, it's Measure G. It's the money that's there, and it's something that we know. It's no different than when we got the landslide deformation report on Oxford. And it was very clear that in the interest of student and staff safety, we needed to relocate Oxford, and that's exactly what we did. This is no different, with the exception of this is student, or this is only staff. But all of the staff here, 100% the students. They support the students 100%.
Well, I think it's a long time coming too. I mean, the building, obviously you just reiterated the history of how many problems this building has. Would you demo, I mean, the school district owns the property. So you would demo the building potentially and rebuild, potentially.
It remains to be seen, right? But that is one of the options to be discussed, yeah. So we have to weigh out ultimately, operationally, what do we need, right? We have a very large facility here and we use just about every bit of it. So we know what we need operationally. We need to evaluate that to see if, to use Damien's word, if we can economize, right? If we can improve efficiency. Right now, at a holistic view, I don't see anything more that we can do, but we'll definitely look at that. And then we also have to look at, is there somewhere else, is there something else that we can do to kind of join different things? One of the questions that the board had is, hey, can we fit plant operations over with transportation? I'll tell you on a quick, 30-second view, absolutely not. But the question has been raised. So what we'll do is we'll do our due diligence and explore some different scenarios, right? Of, could we make this work? If we can't, what are the other options that we have?
Wow. So, boy, that just derailed my second question. But anyway, go ahead. It seems like rebuilding would be more efficient in some ways because you get to start fresh, right?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it absolutely would be. And there's constraints that we'll have to that, right? If the board were to say, yes, go ahead and rebuild this after we've done our due diligence, the Oregon Street building, for example, is actually on the historic registry, but it's not on a national or a state historic registry. It's on a city historic registry. So there's a lot of different pieces that we will have to research to say, okay, we know what we need to do. How can we do this where not only it has the greatest impact from an efficiency and an economic standpoint, but we also have to honor things like the historic registry. Now, if it proves out that it's too expensive and it doesn't make sense and it doesn't work, then that's another road that we go down. So there's a lot of different components that'll have to happen in
Sure,
this.
you have to go through the whole design problem, and demolition also has a cost.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of people forget that. I love the fact that you're an architect and you understand that.
Yeah, no, that's a cost that you have to build in. I mean, building new would be ideal, and not that I don't love that building. I think it's a great building, but I understand it's hit its lifespan. I mean, this is sort of the situation that we're in all over Berkeley, the state, you know, the whole country. We're aging, aging infrastructure all over. So,
Right.
okay.
I assume, John, that Oregon Street repair or rebuild has been contemplated for a long time as it relates to the writing of the bonds, yes?
Well, so yeah, it's never been called out as a marquee project. And what I mean by marquee project is the way the bond language is written. The bond language will talk about certain projects that the district absolutely intends to do, but then it also talks about other projects that it may do on any district-owned or future-owned property. All bond language is written to be somewhat ambiguous to give school districts the need to flex. For example, when we learned of Oxford, we said, wow, we need to react to this. We were able to because the language was. Now, the rebuilding of plant ops was actually put on the last bond, Measure I, and it was approved as a board project. However, when my predecessor came in, there was a reallocation of the bond based on the needs of the district, and that project was removed at that time. Unfortunately, this is, I think the best way to describe this is we've been sort of kicking the can down the road. And when I say we, I mean the district. It's been kicked down the road for a long time. And unfortunately now, based on what we know, we know that we need to address this.
And so then where do you anticipate the funds? We know where they're going to be directed. Where would they be coming? Or what's going to lose? What projects are you going to shift? Or is
Great
that
question.
okay?
Yeah. So first of all, Wade, I want to tell you, I personally sent it to your email, so I know that you have it. I sent you a GoFundMe link, and we're hoping that we can raise enough money here tonight. Sorry, a little bit of humor. It's how I deal with stress. The reality is that it's unknown just yet. We believe that we can actually trim back our infrastructure projects a little bit more. We can put a little bit more on our maintenance parcel tax that's already there, but to help with the infrastructure projects, we can also possibly beef up our preventative maintenance work to prolong some of the lifespans. But there are some smaller projects that may have to lose. And that's work that I'm currently doing with the program team. And I'll tell you, that's going to take a few months to really pull out and pluck out every little piece and say, okay, how do we cumulatively come up with these dollars? So we are working on it, but short of the GoFundMe thing working, which I don't think it will, it's going to take a few months before I can give you that answer, Wade.
Fair enough. Thank you.
John, what's the market value of that property if BUSD sold it?
I don't think it's very high, Damien. We would have to do some research with our broker, but the reality is based on the condition of the buildings, the environmental and the structural condition, the fact that they're really not usable, and knowing the cleanup work that would have to happen in regard to the buildings even prior to demolition. When you factor all of that in, I don't believe the market value is going to be very high. It's a good question, but it's not one that we were prepared to answer because we don't have that survey done by any brokers at this
No, that's
point.
fine, but are you at least going to consider reselling the property to someone else?
Of course, we're going to
Okay.
consider all options.
Okay,
It's probably the
But-
property more than the building that has the value.
Right. But what I would say is that we will consider it, Damien. But one of the bigger pieces, and all of you being Berkeley residents absolutely understand this, is if we sell this property, where do we go?
Right.
There's no empty property. So that's, even right now looking for receptor facilities, we were very fortunate in finding one for the office building fairly quickly. But looking for a receptor facility, a warehouse to house everything else inside of Berkeley, it's very likely. And what we are doing is not only are we looking in Berkeley, but we're looking outside of Berkeley because we have to, and it's a relatively short-term lease. We anticipate leasing other properties for a minimum of 5 years.
Everyone, I wanted to add that, and Damien, to further answer your question, is that in order to sell properties, we've done this through the district, we would have to go through a surplus process as well. As you all know, with the Hillside School, we had to form a surplus committee, and then we went through a formal process of surplusing it, and then it doesn't necessarily go on the market right away. We have to go through the process, and I think also that there are other agencies that also are able to come in and take a grab before it could go on the market per se.
Okay.
Quickly, one thing. I've talked to some developer friends over the years, and there are creative ways. I think Oregon Street's probably necessary for the things that it's being used for today and has to be rebuilt. But I'm sure you'll explore your options. There was talk about teacher housing. There can be joint ventures, sort of with a private partnership or a lease, and having somebody else come in and run the property and build the property out for a share of the profits or whatever. I mean, are you going to actually use this as an opportunity to explore all those options?
So Damien, or I'm sorry, Wade, sorry, it says Damien at the bottom of the screen there. We're currently already in contract, or we're working through the contract right now with a developer. We're building workforce housing over at the San Pablo parking lot for the adult school. We estimate putting 110 units over there. That being said, the original master plan that was done in 2009 for plant ops, because it was on the Measure I bond, showed Oregon Street as being converted to workforce housing. The problem with that master plan in particular was by turning Oregon Street into workforce housing, even though we could build up on Russell Street to support all the shop spaces and the office spaces that we needed, it created a larger problem that we did not have enough parking. Per the city code on this, not only do we have to have enough parking for all the district vehicles, we have to have that parking for all the employee vehicles as well. So understanding that, the footprint that we have here, it's large enough for our operations, but barely. And to keep something like Oregon Street as workforce housing, or even any other type of development, right, through a partnership, it doesn't work. There's not enough land. So that's the quick answer. Now, there's more studies to be done. There's work to do. So I don't have all the answers. We'll explore everything, but just in the interest of full transparency, Wade, I don't see that as being a viable option.
Okay, thank you. I want to say, I missed the first couple of minutes. We couldn't have approved the minutes from the last meeting yet, right? Did you guys defer that till later, or did that happen already?
You came in pretty late, Wade.
Wow.
We did, Wade. We did.
Okay, there were a few things on there I wanted to change, but well, let's move on.
Is there a way that Wade can get those to whoever's keeping track? Or is it too late?
It's probably not. There's some wording in there that I didn't feel like I said what is in there, and so I wanted to just make some minor corrections. We can do this later. We can do this over email. Shanita, we can do this.
I can understand that from reviewing the minutes. I can see how you'd feel that way.
Yes.
Let me interject real quick. Hang on, Kelly. We do have our attorney, Janet Mueller, here. I don't know if once they've been approved, we can go backward. Janet, that's a question?
I think somebody would need to move that we reopen the item and reconsider it. And we'd need everybody, we'd need a quorum to agree to go back and reopen that.
I'll move to reopen.
I'll second.
Okay.
Thank you, and I'll make it quick.
Do we need to
I
vote
think we have
first?
to vote as well. Yeah, we have to vote. So all in favor of reopening the item for the minutes?
Aye.
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 Oppose?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Feel free.
Okay, great. Real quick. I didn't, letter O here, member Skills shared that he feels the Brown Act is the problem. I don't feel the Brown Act is the problem. I think it is a problem or can be a problem. That does matter. We can move on. That's simple enough. There's a lot of things I want to talk about in here, but I'm not going to go into it. I'm just going to talk about the specific things that I apparently said that I don't feel like that I said. So let's move on. And then we'll jump ahead to U. Member Skills feels that they have a broader role than just approving the audit. Member Skills shared that they are to inspect the schools and grounds to be sure projects were completed within the applicable laws. I'm sure I didn't say that, and I have no business making sure that the projects are done within applicable laws. We have, as part of our oversight duties, I like down here at Y where Cheryl said the committee is a monitor. So we want to see the schools. We want to monitor the schools as part of our oversight. It's as simple as that. I certainly don't want to be on the hook for inspecting the schools to assure they're completed within the applicable laws. So.
Okay, just to be clear, when we make the correction, it's the portion of the sentence that says applicable laws, but not necessarily the part where you say inspected regarding the bond dollars. I'm sorry, I can't exactly quote you.
Thank you. Monitor is a much better word than inspect. I may have said inspect, but that's a stronger word as far as what our actual responsibility is here. So.
Okay, but the part that you'd like changes the part about the applicable laws specifically.
For sure.
Okay.
So
Yes,
if I may, because it sounds like, Wade, and I hope you don't mind me interjecting, it sounds like maybe you think some of it wasn't captured right. Because these are minutes, we want them to actually truly reflect. And then if we have to, if you want to have the opportunity to, okay, I meant to say monitor, right? We can come back and do that. So what I'd like to do is, rather than spend too much time on this, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask staff to go back and check the video again to make sure that the minutes really match. We'll email and let you know. We'll revisit this at the next meeting. And then if it turns out that you said inspect as opposed to monitor, I just used that as an example, that'll give you the opportunity to clarify that, and that'll be captured in future minutes. Does that sound fair?
Fair enough. And I want to commend whoever wrote the minutes because they were extensive, and I really appreciate the effort that went into it. That's about as the biggest minutes I've seen in my time here. So I can understand the challenge there. So yeah, that sounds good. Let's move on.
Thank you, Wade.
One more quick thing, just because we're here, park as opposed to parks. There's a few that goes back and forth there for me. If you want to-
Oh, sorry about that. You know what?
Okay.
That's probably autocorrect or something.
You
We'll
know,
fix that.
Damien,
Thank you.
you shared your link, and for a while there, Wade was also Damien Park, which made it plural.
Parks.
So again, sorry. Laughter is how I deal with stress, folks.
Great. I get it. Laughter's good.
Man, you are so clever.
He's on tonight. John's on tonight.
He is. That is awesome.
Thank you,
All
guys.
right, great.
Move on. Thank
All
you.
right, so we're
Thanks,
going
Wade.
back. Going back to the agenda, right? We're on item number 7, I believe. Staff report from Kelly.
Yep. Today what we wanted to do is, so you've been giving the capital project log, but after we, as we've mentioned in the past, it doesn't change very much. So we wanted to mix it up a little bit and give you some information on delivery methods. So what I'm sharing with you now, hopefully you guys are seeing a slideshow on delivery methods right now. Did we transition to that slideshow on your end as well?
Yes.
Okay, great. So on April 1st of 2021, we gave a very similar presentation to this, well, almost exactly, to the board subcommittee to give them a little bit more education on the different delivery methods. So a contract delivery method is the way in which we procure construction related services, as well as in some cases design. So we wanted to take that opportunity to show this to the CBOC members so you guys can have a better understanding of how we pick the different methods according to, you know, what's advantageous and what isn't, depending on the project. So the one that most of us are familiar with is the hard bid or design bid build process, most commonly used. It is exactly what it sounds like. It's just the low bidder state requirements. It gives us a very competitive bid process. And it does give us some flexibility, just a little bit, as far as being able to customize bid packages with alternates. An alternate would be an item that you list on the drawings as a sort of a, I'd like to have this if the cost is right. So in a hard bid, we do get to customize a little bit because we can break certain items out, ask for the pricing, and then decide if we have enough money to do that once we get those bid results. It also offers a better opportunity if you are in more rural areas, which we are certainly not, for skilled and trained workforce requirements, which are pretty strict and cater more to larger companies. So if you are somewhere up north in California, hard bidding even large projects is probably beneficial. Here in Berkeley, because we are in a hub for businesses, we really don't have that issue, but it is something other districts consider. So this is just the hard bid traditional public works bidding process that is done on many projects. And we're going to go into the pros and cons of these different items comparatively in just a sec. So I'm going to go on and give you a little bit of information on design build. So design build is a little different because in hard bid, you got your architect, you get your design, and then you bid. In design build, that comes all in one package. So we have one team that we work with that has a design component and a building component, and we procure those services all at once. So some of the things that are important to know about that is that in budget management, it's really helpful because upfront, when I would normally just be hiring my architect, I'm hiring my contractor as well. So we get a lot of upfront involvement in the budget, and we have somebody that can say, hey, you know what, you guys are crazy. You're never going to be able to do that for that amount of money. Or, yeah, I can actually do it for less. And that is kind of part of the process of understanding how much something's going to cost before you even get to the point where it's all fully designed. It promotes creativity. So in the design build process, we do have a portion of it that we call a design competition. So they are, as part of their submission to get chosen, they're actually giving us sketches and renderings of their vision for the project. So as I say here, it's like a test drive. So you can look at different options that accomplish all the goals that you ask for in the project, but maybe flesh out in different ways depending on the design team. It's very streamlined because you're working with one team. So the district isn't kind of going back and forth between an architect and a designer and wrangling those relationships. You know, if something's wrong with the design, you look across the table at that team and say, well, Mr. Contractor, talk to your architect. You're all on the same team, figure it out. So it's really a great method for managing the work from the district side. This is a really good fit for large, complicated projects. It's something that's not necessarily done on smaller projects because it requires really a team effort, and more sophisticated firms participate in this delivery method. It does not require that you select the low bidder. We're looking more for best value in these situations. So we're going to consider not just what your price is, but we're also going to consider the quality of your design, your experience with like projects, your experience with K-12 construction, maybe even your experience locally in the Bay Area or in the city of Berkeley. So we really are looking at a whole package and a vendor that's going to partner with us. This delivery method does require skilled and trained workforce. So we are looking for bigger contractors that understand how to work with DIR and how to get those reports and forge relationships with the unions. So that's also another really important part of it. Lease-leaseback. So lease-leaseback is sort of a hybrid of both of these options because you are still having that independent design with your architect, but you are also having an early involvement with the contractor. So we're going to be selecting our contractor early in the process. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And we are planning for contingencies and allowances built into the budget. So we do have a little bit more budget management, like I mentioned with the design build. We are working with that contractor to make sure our language is clear and complete so that they are getting everything that they need to get. And we are taking advantage of their early onboarding. So as the designer is designing, they are checking in on those drawings, giving us estimates, planning how their construction project is going to go. So we do still have some of those, what we call lean building practices, which I touched on in the last slide, that it is a sort of a streamlined team. So we still have 2 vendors, but they're now, instead of being completely overlapped, they're sort of halfway overlapped. It also reduces risk because of the partnering and best value selection that we go through. We're better understanding the vendor that we have, and it's less contentious. As you can imagine, when you do a hard bid, everybody's getting as low as they can. So every little change, every little thing we do in the hard bid process is going to translate to a change order. When we're working with partner firms that have been selected on a best value process, we have the opportunity to work in allowances to clear up those problems before we go into construction. So it makes things go a little bit easier and it reduces some of the risk. This one also requires a skilled and trained workforce, the same as design build. All right, so Government Code 4217. This is also similar to lease back and design build. It is a best value selection process. And the goals for these projects need to be tied to energy and renewable resources. The project funding must be available from, I'm sorry, excuse me. I'm sorry about that. I was choking a little bit. Project funding must be available from the sale of energy and/or energy savings. It requires a public hearing process, and the project starts quickly. This really is very similar to design build because these are turnkey projects, one vendor giving everything you need, but it again allows for a best value selection process. So we're not just taking that low bidder, we are looking specifically for a partner firm, and now we're adding another layer. It's a partner that can also provide things specific to energy and renewable resources.
And if I may, Kelly, real quick, one thing with 4217 that does separate it from regular design build is not only does it allow us to select on best value, just like design build, but the funding piece that Kelly is talking about, it's not 100% of the funding, but one of the things that has to be demonstrated in the process with the, in the process with the public hearing is we actually have to see projections. We have to see the metrics of what the project will actually save. And that's where it's really good because even on the same energy project, you can look at 2 different vendors, right? 2 different design build entities and have where one is actually showing you a greater savings than the other. But that has to be produced prior to the project. So it's just a way that we're able to build out these projects and really do it based on best value, not necessarily the lowest price that essentially will cost us more. Cheryl, you just raised your hand.
Yeah, it's just a misnamed sort of delivery method, if you ask me. Does this only involve energy projects, if you will? You know, I mean,
Yeah,
or is
so-
it for general construction?
It can be for general construction that has the benefit of energy efficiency. So I'll give you a great example. Under Measure I, we have the natatorium project. The natatorium project is about a $9.1 million project in which we're redoing the air handlers, we're redoing some of the water systems, we're doing all of that. But as a component of that, we're adding 376 kilowatts of solar, roughly, right? And by doing that, we're making, from the electricity standpoint, the natatorium, which is currently the largest consumer of energy from any building in the whole district, will actually be zero net energy from an electrical standpoint. Now, there is still some gas there for the boilers to heat the pool and whatnot. But so that's more of a general construction project because it gets into structural
Right.
and whatnot.
So then
But
this
there's
would be an
energy
attractive delivery method to consider because of that component.
Right, and we actually used 4217 as a way, that's the process that we are using to deliver the natatorium. And we're already under contract and well into design, ready to go into DSA actually on that one.
Okay.
So great question, thank you.
But and that was going to be my question. Thank you, Cheryl. But I am still confused. Are you using Government Code 4217 in tandem with another
No.
bid method? Because the-
4217 is essentially design build, but we're able to show the energy savings on the front end. So it's a little confusing because design build, Wade, doesn't have to show those metrics. It doesn't have to, part of that best value criteria is not what money are we saving, what energy are we saving, et cetera, when you're just looking at design build. When you look at 4217, what it does is it's the same criteria as design build plus a little more. So it makes it a little bit more competitive. And the reason for that is there are contractors, ESCOs, energy service companies, et cetera, who are very specific to this work. And when you do projects with the intent of really saving energy and saving money, you want to make sure that you're attracting the right people. And just your regular partnership of a designer and a contractor, you know, whether it be Acme Architectural and XYZ Contracting, they know they're not going to be able to compete for this, and really they're not the right fit. So it narrows down your pool and it makes sure that the respondents that you get for your RFP are absolutely the right people coming to the table.
That makes a lot of sense to me, and I appreciate that clarification. Public hearing required, what is that about versus the other ones?
Yeah, it's a formality, but it's a formality under the government code section. And what it is prior to awarding a 4217 contract, basically we have with our board documents all of the findings, and the board has to open a public hearing. And at the public hearing, Wade, you can come as a member of the public and say, I don't agree with this. I think it should be low bid, right? And because it's a public hearing, it actually invites a little bit of conversation. We've never had a public hearing challenged under this, only because of the fact that, at least I've never had a public hearing challenged under 4217, because we've always been able to show in the backup that the savings is really there, right? So it's just the public hearing, because it's a specific government code section, it affords the public a little bit more opportunity not only to comment, but to have a little bit of dialogue.
That was what I want to mention, that is because it's California legislation, right?
Yes.
Yeah, state of California legislation. Yeah.
So, and those are great questions. So thank you. Sorry to hijack it there, Kelly.
No, that's okay. I appreciate the help. All right, so how do we decide which delivery method is right at which time? So this is sort of a chart that gives you an idea of how that decision-making process works. So if I am looking at a design bid build or a hard bid, you can see that where are we at high? So owner experience required. So how experienced is your owner? How savvy? In a design bid build, you need a pretty savvy owner because you're going to be wrangling that contractor on a pretty regular basis. Multi-prime, which we didn't touch on heavily in this presentation, and that's because it's not used very much. But multi-prime is where we do individual contracts with, you know, a roofer, an HVAC sub, a civil, and the district manages multiple contracts individually, and we don't have a general contractor. It's a rarely used method, and as you can imagine, that's why the owner expertise needs to be high in that situation. Design, build, or lease back, as I mentioned, because we're now dealing with a team that has been selected for their expertise in that area and is more customer service oriented, that one goes down. So you can kind of follow the chart with that same logic and take a look at where different projects kind of fall. Project complexity is another one. When you have low project complexity, we're going to get in there and we're going to re-roof 5 schools, right? A very simple sort of project. It's easy to use a design bid build hard bid mentality. When you get to projects that are highly complex, and you're looking for a partner that's going to help you understand how to phase those projects, how to manage them, how to best get the most bang for your buck. You know, in the case of design build, understand what's the best design even for the district up front. That's when you're going to pull in some of those other more collaborative design or delivery methods like design build or lease back. Owner control of the design. As you can imagine, in a design build situation, a design bid build situation or hard bid, we have total control over the design. We're working with our architect we're calling the shots. Same with multi-prime. Design build, you are at a medium level, and that's because now you've given a little control over to your contractor and architect team so that they have a little more control over how the building is built, because they are both designing it and implementing that design. And maybe that's okay. If you're looking for more creativity, that might be a good thing. In lease-back, you're back to having that high level of control over your design because you are still partnered with that design team. You're just now getting the benefit of having your contractor onboarded sooner so that they can participate in that design, but control of design is still really tight and held by the district. Upfront costs, so those are tricky. Because when we take these alternative delivery methods, more collaborative methods like design, build, and lease back, typically we have lots of folks on school boards and communities members that are going to come to us, CBOC members such as yourself, and say, well, shoot, this seems like it's a lot more money. And what I typically tell folks is it's pay now or pay later. So the nice thing about these collaborative design methods is you know that cost up front. So sometimes those hard bid projects, they seem like low cost upfront, but in the end, with change orders, with fighting, with management costs to make sure that we get those projects to the finish line, you end up paying as much or more as you would if you had used a collaborative method. It's nice to know how much something costs upfront so we can budget around it and we can see where we're at early on. So you can see that chart is flipped on the next one, additional costs. So now we're high on additional costs, and we're low on additional costs with the collaborative methods. And that's just the reverse of the one just above it. So that gives you a little bit of idea about how we select. Really what you're looking at is the simpler, the lower dollar value projects, we encourage hard bidding, and the more complicated projects, we encourage design, build, and lease back, specifically design build when we're looking for more collaboration on the design. We got a lot to do and we're not exactly sure what we want, so we want to see some options. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. I would also say that sometimes the market plays a factor in delivery methods. So when you have a market where we have a lot of competition, like during the recession, people were hard bidding a lot more because they had lots of bid coverage, lots of contractors hungry for work, and so they were getting lower prices. But again, there is a little bit of risk in that. So any questions about how we select a delivery method? Oh, wow. I probably just bored you guys to tears. All right. So a little bit of information on the delivery methods that we'll be using in projects for Measure H. At the Sylvia Mendez modernization, we are using a lease-back delivery method, and we are completing the selection process for that vendor right now. So that's something that'll be coming soon to board. The Berkeley High School parking structure will be a design build project, just for its straightforward nature. And also it's a specific type of work. So we're going to get the right vendors involved and be able to allow them to have a little bit of flexibility. And BHS Little Theater project coming up long-term, we're considering lease-back for that as well. We want to have a lot of tight control of the design process, but we want a collaborative partner because of the challenging aspects of the project. And I'm sorry, I didn't touch on this with Sylvia Mendez, because we really are going to have to do a shuffle with temporary housing and work creatively with that. That's another reason we're pulling in our lease-back contractor in early so that they can be a part of that decision. All right, any questions on upcoming projects? All right. Okay, so for infrastructure projects, we did touch already on Government Code 4217. So that'll be used on an as-needed basis. And then with infrastructure projects, often we're just going to be using hard bid delivery methods because they tend to be a little bit smaller, a little bit more focused on a certain subcontractor or a couple of subcontractors. If you get something much bigger, you might go to lease-back if you're doing something like district-wide, but typically we're going to stick with hard bid on those smaller projects. All right. Any additional questions on design?
You asked a question. Any questions on upcoming projects? Were those the three you were asking about?
No, that was just the 3 examples that I wanted to give you since we talked about lease back and design build. So I wanted to show you guys some of actual Berkeley projects and, where they land on that chart. But I mean, if you have questions about others, you can let us know. Some are pretty far in the future and we may have not decided yet.
Yeah, I mean, is that something we are going to talk about tonight? But I know we have about a half hour left, and maybe we're full tonight. But are we going to review what's happening, what's coming up?
I think that's something we'd probably do in a future meeting. This one was more to kind of educate you guys on the delivery methods. If you want to revisit what we're using on other projects in the future, we can certainly do that at a future agenda.
Yeah, we'll put it on the agenda. Okay, thank you.
So if there are no other questions on the delivery methods, we do have item number 8, which would be nice to let our legal counsel present and leave if she's so inclined.
Okay.
All right.
John-
So, go ahead. You're there. Go ahead, Janet.
Oh, okay. So, good evening, everybody. I was here a couple of meetings ago. I think met most of you at that time and gave, I think, a little bit of an overview presentation about the CBOC. And I know that there have been some questions along the way about bylaws and what they should say and how to best characterize, sort of the duties and purpose and scope of the committee. So I don't want to necessarily, I know time's short. I don't know whether you're looking for a review of these bylaws or focused discussion on some of the questions that looks like got raised at the last meeting, which I gleaned from the minutes and also from some discussions with staff internally, particularly maybe related to the duties of the chair and the secretary, and then some related discussion about some proposed guidelines.
So I just wanted to start us off by saying that I believe that the committee has had these documents for a while, and I think we were hoping to kind of finalize that discussion and maybe pick your brain as needed, Janet, but I'm not sure if anybody has a differing opinion, please speak up.
Cheryl, what else do we have to discuss tonight beyond this? As far as time goes?
We have a full agenda, really. I would say, I mean, after this, we have a process for adding items and the website and committee comments and some other items. We have the email that we received as committee members from the public.
Wow.
I was wondering if I could move to items 9, items 10, and items 11 to the next meeting. Number 9 was, anyway, I'll motion that. Anyone, is that okay?
Let me look at that real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, so Damien, I believe you actually added number 9 to our agenda, correct?
Exactly. Well, I wanted to be an action item actually, so that's why I thought maybe just do it in the next meeting. And then number 10, website content, let's push that off. No, that was mostly my thing anyway. Number 11.
That is our email that we received.
Right.
Yeah, so
Right.
I just feel like if nobody has responded to her, we should
not
at
do
least
that.
have a
Okay.
discussion about, is it appropriate for us to
Okay, let's
for us
push
to
off 9 and
respond.
10 then. I'll motion that. Anyone want a second pushing off 9 and 10?
I'll second.
I second too.
Okay. So we're going to go back then to our.
Okay, we got to, sorry, we got to vote.
Okay.
All in favor in pushing items 9 and 10 to the next meeting agenda?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
And then real briefly, if
Kelly.
I may, 9, I know you're going to spend some time on, as you are number 11. Number 11, I believe that the community member who emailed you is actually in the audience. So if you want to flip those on the agenda and do that first, you can do that. You will have to motion second and vote to amend the agenda, but you can do that so the community member is not sitting for the first part of the discussion as far as the bylaws and whatnot.
I'll motion that we address that issue that I am.
I have a question about that. Do we have a member of the public in attendance that we cannot see?
You do. So if we look on participants and look at attendees now, since this is a webinar, Ms. Rios is an attendee.
Okay, gotcha,
I see.
thank you.
Okay,
I did motion that we can look at that now if somebody else agrees.
I agree. I'll second it.
All right, all in favor in
Aye.
Doing item 11 next?
Aye.
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 Oppose? Motion carries.
Janet.
Kelly, I wonder if you can stop sharing for a moment, and that way they can have their discussion.
Okay, who's got a thought on this email?
Damien, if I may start, I think it's important that we clarify for the public what the role of our committee is and where the best place is for them to take this concern. So we can suggest or tell them who best to address this, because I think the request is certainly, her concerns are legitimate. And I'd like to convey the fact that the committee has read and, given significant amount of thought to her request, but really we need to tell her the best place, or any citizen, the best place to take these concerns. And, one of the questions I had for tonight was, can we establish a process where, the chairman of our committee sends a letter to whoever the member of the public is that has a concern and tells them who best to send this to on the board or within the district, because it's really outside our purview,
Okay.
other than to get them the information they need.
My guess is that Cielo strongly is aware of those, because I know she's been in contact with a bunch of people besides us. So I think she's aware of that. But I think I agree with you about it requires a lot of work on our part to investigate this. Go ahead, Wade. Sorry.
If I may, it's, I mean, I think we're pretty, yeah, sorry. I think we're pretty clear that this is not our purview, basically, correct? This committee doesn't.
Can't, yeah.
We cannot, I am looking at our questions. She's asking us to investigate and to clarify how the tax money is properly used. Her concerns are real. I think her concerns are serious. But I think my concern is that I'm with Carla. I don't think we are the adequate forum for these types of questions, correct? And this is a question probably from our legal counsel.
I mean, we do have some oversight though. I don't feel like these are, I mean, the cost benefit stuff that I feel like after the fact is certainly something we can look into and we're welcome to investigate. That doesn't strike me as outside of our purview. It just strikes me as, I'm not sure what we can add, because I can ask, but I know we've kind of gotten some brief answers already. I mean, one suggestion for Cielo is to resend me a list of detailed questions that she would like us to ask, but I assume that she's asked them already. So that's why I don't see quite why it matters if we ask them or if she asked them. I don't think we'll get a different answer if I ask John or if she asks John. So, so then the only thing that I think that Cielo wants is for us to do a little more work on ourselves. But honestly, I don't think we can. I don't think, I don't think we're able to put the proper effort to be up to speed, to understand these problems, to actually do the investigation ourselves. I don't think we can do that, or are willing to do that, is a better word.
Yeah, well, I think one of my concerns is we don't really have all of the technical expertise. That's not why we were asked to participate as a member of CBOC, nor do we really have, the detailed information about why the decisions were made regarding how to handle, efforts to, do a better job with air handling. And, I don't have any expertise other than what I'd read, in Consumer Reports or whatever set of materials there are to try to assess what's the best approach for the classrooms and the schools around in our district. I think that's kind of where I'm landing. In addition to, it's really outside of our purview, unless there were something that I don't understand about how the decision was made to use the model that John and company did. So I just think it's way outside of our purview. But I don't want to treat it, any serious request from a citizen as not to be taken seriously.
I'm happy to share some thoughts. I don't have the information. I haven't actually read the information. I think I know generally, but in general, any member of the public can come to your meeting and can make public comment on items within your jurisdiction. They don't necessarily have the right or can't compel you to place something on your agenda, particularly if it is not a matter that you have the authority to remedy or address in some way. And so, we're obviously doing a balance here. We're a public body for purposes of, hearing from the public, and to the extent it ties in with your duties as a committee that is tasked with ensuring that bond revenues have been spent in accordance with the bond measure and with the Constitution on appropriate expenditures and not on operating expenses, for example. Once somebody's interest in you taking action, is outside of that purview, it isn't really something that you're required to take action on, or might even elect through staff to decline to agendize that. So I do think it could be appropriate for the chair and or for John, when we receive community letters and whatnot, share them with the committee to allow people to come to the meetings, and if they want to make comment, they can. But there are other administrative ways that sometimes, are best used to respond to, to folks who have an interest in the business that you do, without a board discussion or a full committee discussion.
Hi, as a member, Cheryl here, just to agree with Carla. I mean, if you look at the language of the 3 items of the asks in the email, please investigate, that is sort of beyond, I think, our capability. Please clarify, again, beyond, and then please help support keeping our kids safe from COVID. That is also well beyond our capabilities in this committee. We are monitors of how the monies from the bonds that have been approved by the city, the citizens, are used. So again, a very thoughtful email, but I don't know how we can address it here.
I think that was perfectly well said, and I agree with everyone else on the committee. I think we've given it the time that we needed to respectfully, and I think we respectfully need to move on to our next item.
Good.
Okay. So we pushed back number 9. Number 8, do we need to speak further with Janet about our duties of the chair and the secretary then? That's where we are, I believe.
Is it, so I think we got last time, Jen, you correct me if I'm wrong, but the bylaws, how we define our own secretary is up to us. Is that right?
Well, let me share some perspectives. So in these bylaws are school board bylaws. And so they, I think, are attempting to lay out some fundamental structural issues, that they see as being important to you being able to carry on your committee duties. Having said that, there's nothing magic about there being a chair and a secretary. That's not in the code. I would say that districts often have 2 people, okay? And I don't want to elevate title over, whatnot. There's a chair always to kind of run meetings and kind of keep order and be the lead contact person, et cetera. And then there's usually either a secretary or a vice chair. And the secretary, if it's secretary, is often the person that sort of will back up the chair if the chair is absent or needs assistance, or sort of be a second in command. Functionally, the school district is required by law to provide administrative assistance to the committee to carry out its duties, or technical assistance. And that is usually takes the form of, if we scroll down to where the section is about the secretary, because we can work on this. Sorry, yeah, right there we go. I think what you're not seeing here is the unamended version of these bylaws. I think originally this section about the secretary said, the secretary shall be elected by the members of the committee and shall facilitate online access to relevant meeting records as necessary. That was it. And so, but there are kind of repeated references to the secretary throughout the bylaws. So this function here, I think, is really, as these items are listed, but functionally, I think these duties tend to be handled by the district or delegated to the district. And kind of to,
and it's
to be
referenced
managed
that way on page 4. The secretary may be aided by the district.
Right. Exactly. So I think these are important things that have to happen for the committee to maintain its existence. Whether it's paper, whether it's electronic, it is normally a function of any committee that somebody takes the minutes, keeps the minutes, sees that all the notices or letters and whatnot that their committee received, are made available to the committee, et cetera. Whether we want to be this specific about the secretary's duties, whether we want to leave it here and sort of functionally, these are tasks that tend to be handled by the district, I think we're certainly welcome to take your input. What I would like these bylaws to reflect is what is actually the workable, sort of meets the workable needs of the district and reflects what actual practice is in effect.
I am currently the secretary. I am, and thank you for that. I appreciate that clarification there. I was, I think, elected by default. I had some experience as a CBOC member, and there was nobody else who wanted to be secretary. So I said, sure, no problem. And I just wanted to bring to the board's attention that I wasn't doing all of these things. That's why we're having this conversation. We are well served by the district doing these things. I have no problem with the language as it is, as long as it doesn't mean that I am somehow failing in my duty. That's
You are okay with us, Wade.
That's really the bottom line.
That's all you needed to know,
Okay.
right?
All right, that's all I needed to know.
Yeah, I'm more troubled by section 16 where it says the chairperson shall where is it? I just saw about holding the votes, or the roles, yeah, which I have not done. I have, let the district do that, if you will. So if everybody's okay with that, otherwise I will take that up.
So I guess I'd like to go back to what the attorney just said. Why not simplify it so that, you maybe remove some of the language as you're suggesting, Cheryl, and perhaps even under the duties of the secretary, if we have, just clarify in a way and simplify and not put, perhaps as much detail about the specific tasks, since the tasks are really performed by the district for us or on our behalf or with us.
I'll give.
Well, it could change in the future depending on the committee. And so I think having a line like the secretary may be aided by the district should also be under the chairperson as well, to say that, you're there for us to pick up the slack.
Yeah,
Okay,
I agree.
Why don't I'll give it another shot. I chopped it pretty good last time, so I won't chop it quite as much.
And then with the technology, these were clearly written, I think, before we stored things in the cloud, apparently. But we can sort of look at that as well and say, is somebody really going to have a file of papers in their home on the CBOC committee? I mean, maybe, but is it necessary? Does it need to be written in there as such?
Look at this. This is what, 4 years of paperwork that.
I'm not saying, I am also a paper person, but I have not been a paper person as it relates to secretary of the CBOC.
That was preceding John. I'm sorry.
I hate paper and you all know that, so.
That was when we had Lou. We had Lou twice. We had Tim, you know. So that's all from that era.
Right.
All right, so I'll give that a shot and then I'll send it out for the next meeting. What about as for the guidelines, that's something else, but the guidelines.
The guidelines are the next item on the agenda, but before we close the loop on this, I want to understand what the next steps are. So if I understand it correctly, Member Park is volunteering to take this document that we have right here that we're looking at and make the changes that we just discussed, maybe adding that line to the duties of the chairperson, updating the technology piece and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I'll share with Ken and Wade to our subcommittee.
And then what we would do, this is my opinion, is that if you guys could send that to us early on, then we can again run it through DWK, check it one more time, and then we'd be ready for a vote at the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay, sounds good.
Can I make one other comment, observation from the discussion of the plant ops? We've listed 1720 Oregon Street Conference Room as the principal meeting location of this committee. And I assume that's going to change, and that's in section 2. We might want to just refer to the district office location. I know we're in virtual meeting right now, but we won't be forever. John, do you have a suggestion?
Yep.
We can update that right now to 1005 Parker Street in Berkeley. We have secured the lease for that, and we'll be in that facility for 5 years. That facility will have a conference room as well. So when we are out of virtual and we can begin meeting in person again, that's where those meetings will be held.
Okay, perfect. We'll make that change too.
Okay.
I have a question going back to the minutes from November. That item S was Member Schneiderman would like a document that directs them on what to do when they received comments or inquiry from members of the public. Would this be a place to address that? Member Park asked her to draft something to describe what she's looking for.
I'm sorry, I believe that's on the next item, and that's part of the guidelines, not part of the bylaws.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
So yes, as it relates to legal, then, and it looks like we're looking at legal for two different things at the last two things, these two documents. Is there something else we need to go over or be clarified on as it relates to the bylaws from legal? Council Mueller?
I'm not sure there's anything else that I had flagged or understood about the bylaws.
Okay, the blues and the yellows that are, you know, are we comfortable with where these are? And then Damien's gonna just take another hard look at the items we just discussed, and then we think we're ready next meeting to amend and approve. Is that where we're at?
I guess a clarifying question, maybe, John, you know, I think what we'd be looking for is that we think that this comfortably describes the committee and the committee's charge, but I think they actually go to the school board for approval. Once I think the committee has said, we've looked at these and, you know, we're working within these.
Yep.
That is section 18, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and we have touched on that in past meetings, that this is the first step, and the final step would be board approval.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, anything else on bylaws?
I'm sorry, I should have jumped in earlier. So Cheryl had an issue with section 16. Is that also being, are you fixing that as well? Are we looking at that, or are we leaving it as is on section 16? Cheryl, you mentioned.
No, 16,
yeah, I would just say let's add just
That
add
little-
an amendment either in section 16 or at the bottom for both, that the secretary and the chairperson may
Right.
be aided.
Okay. All right. Damien, you've got that, right?
Yep, I got it.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right.
All right, well
So-
then, before we move on, in the interest of saving money, bye, Janet. Thank you so much, but let's get Janet off the clock. Thank
All
you,
right.
Janet.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Janet.
I'll see you another time, maybe.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
It does matter how many hours Janet works.
Absolutely
I have to
does.
admit that.
Yeah.
All right, thank you all. Good night.
Next time we put her first.
Well, I think it was actually very beneficial to have
I
her here
agree.
through the meeting this evening. And, you know, you guys definitely had some questions in regard to Ms. Rios's questions. And I think
Yeah.
she was able to help you with that, which is, I think was a definitely worth having her here to answer your questions this evening.
All right, so now we're going to move on to the guidelines. And I also have that document queued up a little bit easier to read here as well. So let me slide that on over and you guys should see that now. And this is the document that we reviewed last time. I know that folks wanted to take a little more time to digest that and maybe make some recommendations. So this is
Yeah.
the portion we would do that. And then I know that Chair Drinkwater mentioned that Member Schneiderman wanted some direction regarding addressing folks' questions. So we can talk about that too. That's all one item here.
Let me
Yeah.
suggest that I have made substantial edits to this in thought process with some different people, and I would like to send it out to everyone between now and the next meeting. And so if Carla wants to say something, that's great. But in terms of this document, I have a new suggestion, but I don't think now's the right time. I'd like to send it out to everyone so we can review it more in detail.
All right, I think that's a great idea, Damien. Let's go with that.
Sounds good.
Okay, so in order to be compliant with the Brown Act, if Damien, you could send it to staff here at NDUSD, and then we'll send it out to all of the committee members.
Sure.
You'll see that it goes out, and then we'll remind everyone not to reply all. So that would be awesome.
To Kelly, right? Okay.
Fine by me.
So
All right.
Damien, you have Carla's concerns. You're aware, you're going to sort of fold that in, or has that already been folded in?
It has not.
But you have a direction on that.
Carla, do you want
What-
to go ahead?
What I'll do is, based on the discussion we've had today, I'll send something to Damien. I'll go to the Google Doc and put some information in. And, you know, my concern is only that we have a clear and simple policy of respectfully, within the
Right.
guidelines we operate, replying to any member of the public that sends information to us. That's my main concern.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, I
Hey.
agree. And how do we respond? Because if we respond
Yes.
from our own email, then that kind of defeats the purpose of the generalized email. So how can we send a response to her? Like
Yeah,
I felt kind of
yeah.
helpless and I
Yeah.
knew time was passing.
Yeah,
Real
Yes.
quick, if I may, I'm sorry, I'm tired. I just made a big mistake here and I'll own it. So when I spoke with our counsel, Janet Mueller, earlier, and this is from her, not from me, I just texted her, asked her to log back in. I don't know if she can. I actually asked her to leave a little bit too quickly. When she looked over this packet as well, she did have some concerns. She absolutely believes that there should be guidelines for the items that you guys are talking about, right? About how do we respond to public and things like that. Her concern is really on like the rating of projects and things like that, because the CBOC is sort of a look back committee, right?
yeah,
To look back on it from a financial aspect.
Yep.
And this changes it to sort of a look ahead. So I just made a major mistake and she didn't catch it either by saying, hey, we're good, Janet, get off the clock, bye. I can ask her to come back to talk about this a little bit more. I'll own it. I apologize. I don't mean to waste anybody's time. I'm human. But this was an absolute concern of hers.
It sounds like Damien has some revisions and edits, so
Yeah, it
Right.
probably makes sense to do it next time.
we can.
Okay, yeah.
yeah,
So and
I-
what I would ask is, Damien, if you want to send that in advance, what I can do is I can share that with Janet. And then if
Yep.
we need her to come back in, we can. And if
Mhm.
not, we'll, oh, she's signing back in now. Janet, I'm sorry. I was just explaining to the committee your concern of the look ahead on rating
Mhm.
project versus looking back. I asked you to sign off and
Yes.
sorry, I got tired.
Okay, yeah, no, sorry, and I even walked away from my phone, so I apologize. I didn't see your message right away, John. Well, the concept of guidelines, I think, is perfectly fine, like things that are about operational issues with the committee, for the committee to have a set of guidelines if they'd like to. And I think the concern would be, right, the guidelines or how you decide to carry out your duties should be consistent with what the purpose and overall parameters are that are set by law for the committee. So there were a couple of things that stood out to me about this particular item. One was item 1, where the committee would be requesting that the district provide them with a list of contemplated and new bond expenditures. I wasn't totally clear what that meant, and it seemed inconsistent in my mind with the fact that you're usually doing it as a look back after the fact.
Okay.
And going through and looking at what the expenditures have been as opposed to what they're contemplating doing in the future. They may, and it sounds like from the meeting, that you may be getting a look at what's coming, but in terms of what your reports actually are doing, usually looking back in time. That was one issue I wanted to flag. As far as, I think in the bylaws, I had tried to write something that made it clear that you all could decide how to write the report, right? I mean, how you want to tackle the task of the report, I think, is up to the committee to decide. And I interpreted section 3 as being about how you were going to choose to sort of break up the work of the report. And I don't know if I was right in thinking that, but it seemed as though one thing that I think the district would be concerned with is that we're not just having now 7 different members all meeting individually with the district and getting a customized report that's customized specifically to the project that each committee member took on. So I think the district is happy to prepare information, reasonable reports, but at a certain point, right, what the whole department is trying to do, and it could become administratively very cumbersome. And so that it struck me there that might be something that we'd want the district to give you some feedback on.
Kelly pointed out last time, yes.
Okay, and I had only one other comment. Item 4, it says, although the focus on cost is important, committee members should also consider efficiency, i.e. consider value rather than focus on costs. Really, as not being an advisory committee, I just want to sort of bring everybody back to the fact that we're looking at whether the expenditures were appropriate under the bond measure, under the Constitution, and you're looking at to make sure that the district hasn't used the funds on operational expenses, because there's that distinction in the law between, not using it on, administrative salaries, teacher salaries, et cetera, other than within very specific limits that I think we talked about. So that, I personally thought that item probably should come out. I think what you're really doing is just looking at these projects and looking at those cost efficient or design efficiency issues as we've laid out in the bylaws and things like that, but maybe not so much the value of the project or how you might rank them in terms of their value, et cetera, because those are decisions that the board makes, when they approve the projects at the front end. So those were just some thoughts I had. I don't know, John, if there was anything else that you had any comments about, but conceptually, the idea of guidelines and figuring out a protocol for how you like to get the business of the committee done, I think is perfectly fine, and no problem with the concept of it.
Yeah, I didn't have anything to add to that.
I think we have to have some oversight. I mean, unless I'm completely wrong, I've been misunderstanding of this committee for a couple of years of the value of a project, not just whether the bond money was spent in the right place, But I mean, and I think what we should do, Damien, because we can all talk right now for the next minute or two, because we're under the Brown Act. So Damien and I will go back and look at this again. But there are already pre-prepared bond oversight committee guidelines that we should probably go back and have another hard look at. Maybe try to deviate from that as little as possible. But some of this stuff could be incorporated into that. I just am taking a little bit of an issue with the understanding that I've always had in that we're supposed to be looking at the value we're getting for the bond money spent, because we're doing the job of the people who are voting for the bond, right or not?
Well, I would say one of the statutory activities that the code suggests that the committee may engage in are, and it's somewhere, it's in a few places, reviewing efforts by the school district to maximize bond revenues by implementing cost savings measures, including but not limited to, and its mechanisms designed to reduce professional fees, costs of site preparation, recommendations regarding joint use of facilities, mechanisms designed to reduce costs by incorporating efficiencies in school site design, and recommendations regarding the use of cost-effective and efficient reusable facility plans. So I don't think you're off base in terms of what.
That's exactly what I was referring to.
Yes.
Right there. Thank you.
Okay. So I think it was this concept in here of the educational value, which I think starts getting into the what does the board prioritize as far as, what kinds of facility projects to do for the program itself in support of students, which I think is clearly something that, the board is the policymaker on. And you are, looking at some of these cost efficiency issues as part of your job, as opposed to maybe the value of the facility itself.
I think it's been helpful, and I don't think we need to worry about 7 different CBOC members tackling 7 different projects to the point where we're overwhelming the district with digging up all this stuff. I don't think that's going to happen. I just can't imagine that's what we're going to try to do here. So,
yeah. Okay.
Cheryl, we good?
Cheryl, you're muted.
She probably
Yes.
went to dinner.
Yes,
Oh,
and we are at time unless
Right.
anybody has anything else they want to comment on.
All right, Janet, I promise this time. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Sorry
Very,
about
very
that.
helpful that you came back, though. Thank you for
Okay.
that. Now
All
we
right.
can go here.
Good night.
Okay, so policy regarding, okay, so we have covered 8, 9, and 10 are pushed to next year. 11 was taken care of, 12 committee comments. I think we've exhausted.
Yep.
13, you do need to approve that resolution.
Okay, how is this different than the one we met, that we voted on in October?
You
It's
actually
not
have
the
to,
current law. We have to do it every
Every
30.
month.
It's,
Yeah.
let me rephrase, the current law, once you pass this resolution, it's only good for 30 days. So
Okay,
that's why sometimes we're actually post dating it to start so that we know that we're covered.
okay. I motion that we move to vote.
I second.
Okay.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We continue, or let's, I guess, state it for the record, that we are agreeing to meet remotely for the next 30 days. From this period, December 30th through January 30th.
Correct. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. So we have, our next meeting is January 25th as scheduled previously. Is there anything at this moment that we want to add? Or, of course, you can do it at any time by emailing the proper people, everyone.
Right. I'll email mine. So thank you.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Then I would like to adjourn this meeting at 7:34.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone. And again,
Thanks,
sorry
Cheryl.
about my little mishap with asking her to leave too early. So sorry about
No
that.
worries.
worries.
Everybody have a good holiday and thank
Okay,
you for all the
sure.
presentations.
Same here.
Nice to
here.
hear
Thank
from
you.
you,
everyone for
Anita.
being here.
Hap-
Yes,
Happy holidays, everyone.
happy holidays.
Bye-bye.
Happy holidays. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.